Hey, has anybody watched the TV show The Pitt? Mm. So I'm not sure if you've seen Noah Wiley or Wyle. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. But I have been watching him for years. He used to be on a program called the ER, which I don't know if anybody has seen that, but that was like 11 seasons. It was terrific. He was on a TV show called The Librarians. And then he made guest appearances on it like later on in its lifetime. So yeah, he's been on so much, and I only mentioned a couple because the Pit right now is the most relevant, let's say. So, wow, amazing. He's always been a terrific actor. So let's take a look at his numerology. Why don't we together? Thank you all for being here. Please like and subscribe and click that bell icon to the drop down to all because we don't want YouTube to tell you what kind of videos you should be watching. And also, if you are considering a numerology reading or consultation, please reach out on my website, LoriIntuitiveNumerologist.com. Yes, please do that. My schedule is wide open for you. So let's see, we can start with Noah's destination number, which is a nine. Or I'm sorry, destiny number. Geez, oh man. So let me just show you a little bit about what I have for Noah. So Noah is his full name is actually Noah Strasser Spear Wyle, Wyle. And we can tell that I took a look at this information, and that's what I got from Google. But we can tell that we've calculated his destiny number, his soul number, and his personality number based on the letters that I calculated in his name. Okay, and then you can see where I did an opposite black color for just his vowels so that we could calculate the soul number. And then that left the numbers that are only consonants for his personality number. Of course, we have his life path number and his maturity number there and his pinnacles and challenges. So if you guys want to take a screenshot of this, just so you have his information. And in the meantime, I'll read to you what they're about. So the destiny number, as we said, is a nine. So I'm a fan of this number. It shows he has a compassionate side of himself, which Noah does. We've seen that in his acting, in all the years that he's um, been acting for us. We're his audience, so we're the part that he considers family. We're his fans. So it shows he has a compassionate side. He can be creative and charitable and highly intuitive. I like that about the nines. They can be highly intuitive. We see this in a few other numbers, but specifically about the nine. The nine used to be considered in ages past the number of God. So interesting. But regardless, I think because it's an intuitive number, that's why people came to this conclusion because they felt the intuitive nature, they felt the God piece coming forward, which I think is really interesting. So, let's see. There are times as a younger person when he may have been gullible. That kind of plays into that nine, especially with his destiny, because the destiny is a number that is kind of with you all through life, but it's written out for you. Whereas the life path is a little bit different. It includes the free will that you have to make the choices in your life path. So the destiny kind of never changes. So this is something that's important for us to know. Um, but it's a good way to let go of what doesn't serve him. That's interesting because of the nine. And we know from other readings that the nine uh, is specific to letting go of what doesn't serve you anymore. That's interesting, isn't it? So his soul number is a number two. This is a kind of a fascinating number. This is Noah's heart's desire. I love that. It's a number that speaks to cooperation, balance, harmony, and relationships. So, interestingly, Noah has been married 2 times. The second time was in 2014. So there are 3 children. 2 are from his first marriage, and he has 1 child with his second marriage. He's truly a relationship person. He doesn't, I won't say that he hasn't had time to himself. He has. And in its own way, it's been good because it helps him to think and to kind of reevaluate why he was in the situation he was in, you know. But now here he is with his second marriage, and he's making that work a little bit more. So his personality number is a 7. That's a really interesting personality number because the 7 is a little bit about isolation. But the good news is it's important that I think we remember this is how other people see him. It's really not the truth of who he is, but there is some truth to the number about Noah. So it's eccentric. The number is solitary, intuitive. We already know the 9 has led us here. Researcher, and he's very analytical in his thinking. That could very well be true. This is a great example of how the personality number can be somewhat true, but specifically shows only what needs to be shown. That I think is very true because some people that we've discovered their personality is the same as some of the other core numbers that they have. So it's easier for them to kind of share themselves, who they are. Maybe a little bit harder. Maybe because they they're in the public eye. Maybe they want to keep certain things to themselves, but they don't. I'm not sure. Let's think about how that plays out. But in Noah's case, he's got a 7 as his personality number, which some of the traits, the personality traits, are included in other numbers, but he's only showing you the parts of himself that he wants you to see. That's um, that's pretty fascinating. Yep. So, okay, so we talked about how it's a great example. It doesn't mean that it hasn't been real, but the 7 is not in his other core numbers, or as we'll see, in his pinnacles or challenges. So interesting that it would show up here as his personality number. And I recalculated just to make sure I was right. So yeah. Again, as we said, there are certain numbers of the number 7, certain traits, let's say, that are part of his other um, core numbers, but maybe he doesn't want to show everything. And it's not something that he thinks about. It's just done almost naturally, which is pretty interesting. So again, this takes me back to the idea that it's a great example of how the personality number can be somewhat true, but specifically shows only what needs to be shown. And not necessarily, we know that Noah is doing it, but it's almost like that intuitive nature that he has is just revealing what needs to be revealed. Wow. That's pretty fascinating when you start thinking it through like that. But anyway, so his life path number, oh, we talked about his personality. Yes, the 7. So his life path number is a 1. Hmm. So this is an interesting number because really the number, and I'll show you really quick. Uh, The life path, as we know, is made up of the numbers in his birth date. Well, everything adds up. We can add this one of 2 ways. We can add it all the way across and we get a 28. That's fine. But we don't like to miss karma or master numbers. So what I did was I added it up a second way, which is what I always do. And I try not to miss any karmic numbers. So I found the karma is number 19. And that was by adding up the six, the four, and then the 1971 I added up separately. That came to 10, 17, 18, 8 and 1 is 9. So I added the 9 plus the 6 plus the 4, and I got the 19. So does that make sense to you? So it's added up individually, almost by sections, instead of adding it up all the way across. That's how I found the karma. So the karmic number is a 19. So let's talk about this for Noah. The 1 plus the 9 equals 10, and the 1 plus 0 equals 1. That's how we get to that one life path. So because numerology always boils down to one number. So the core number is a 1. That's his life path number. But this karmic number is a debt brought from a past life. There's a need for repayment this time around. So in a past life, there was an abuse of power. The truth is, he likely knew what he was doing. That's interesting. So, yes, he's paying for it this time, but it seems to me that he is not necessarily repeating the same behavior. Now, we don't know what Noah is like specifically in his home life. Does he keep that from us? I don't know. I don't know. That there I would say that anybody in the public eye has the right to privacy in their own lives. Everybody has that. Everybody has that. We all have that right to privacy. Okay. So there was some sort of self-centered behavior going on in a past life. And the way for him to beat this karma is to stand up for himself. That's so important. And we can see where he's been doing that, standing up for himself. Wow. So, and to stand up rightly. That's really fascinating. So, in other words, when he stands up to use uh morality, to use good, in it, like to use that intuitive nature to come up with the right way to stand up for himself, to say, no, I'm not going to do this way, or I don't believe that that's how that should be happening for that person. Whatever is the situation before him, to stand up rightly. That's really important. The need to be seeking assistance from other people and support from other people, that's really important too. He might experience situations in this lifetime that teach him independence. Mm, that's pretty fascinating. How to be considerate to others and to be more assertive without looking weak or being too selfish in his pursuits. Mm, I like this for him. Okay. Okay. So these are part of what the karmic nature will bring him. So let's look at his maturity number, because the maturity number I think is going to make you feel, at least it made me feel more um positive for him, because let's face it, that karmic energy, the karmic debt can be overwhelming to a person. Okay, so his maturity number is a number 10, which we know is good karma. We know that this is something that he can use as he gets a little bit older, and he's 55 years old now. So I would say that this is probably in play. And he's learning how to do that, standing up for himself, to be in being independent. He see and again, I'm wondering if that break that he had between relationships helped him to grow. Hmm, that's interesting. So any karmic number, such as his life path, that 1910, can be paid for now. And again, we talked about the fact that he's 55 years old. So I would guess he's working through this right now. And we don't specifically know, but it makes sense. And we'll take a look at his pinnacles and we'll see if anything stands out to us that seems to speak to him working out his karma. So Noah's first pinnacle was a one. That's so fascinating. So while his challenge was a two. So the age was up to age 35. Okay. So that this has been birthed to age 35. This insinuates he's learning to be independent through this personality, this pinnacle rather. Interesting to me because he has from birth to age 35. So it was a period of time where he had to learn to be independent. Does that mean he's learned to repay back this karma? Not necessarily, but that's part of what he's doing here. So he's taking the energy of the life of that first pinnacle rather and learning what it takes to overcome the karma. That's pretty fascinating. So let's see. This insinuates, okay, so everyone he meets can be a teacher to him, which I really find that that's true of all of us, but specifically somebody with karma in their number and knowing that he has the one in the first pinnacle, everyone he meets can be a teacher to him, sent to help him achieve the goal of learning independence. Wow. Feels like it is a huge help for his 1910 karma in his life path number. Isn't that true? The number two challenge is about sensitivity. Oops, sorry. Sensitivity in his relationships, learning where to balance emotions and events is important now. And again, this is between birth to 35 years old. He was married during this time period. He got married towards the end of this pinnacle. So that helped him to learn to balance, to harmonize, to be cooperative in his relationships. Maybe early on there was and we don't know, but he had to have had some relationships as a child, parental relationships, maybe siblings. I don't know. I did not research that section. I'm sure that he had to have someone raise him. So, balancing and cooperating in those relationships was important. Feels like a good number to have in the first pinnacle, meaning that challenge number of a two. So, that feels like a good number to have in the first challenge. Yeah. So, the second pinnacle and challenge was a four. Mm. And with a five challenge, those numbers can be somewhat at odds. And the reason, because, which is interesting that one is a pinnacle and one is a challenge. The four being the pinnacle is about building success. It's about working hard. Um, and it's building success in life so that you can form a solid foundation. That's what he was doing. The five, on the other hand, as the challenge, is a bit impatient and somewhat restless because he wants his freedom to go and change and do things like uh, he wants adventure. That's what he wanted. But so as I said, the four and the five can be at odds with each other. And luckily for him, it was mostly in the second challenge. So that's a 9-year period. It would have happened between age 35 and 44. So being at odds, again, he doesn't know that it's only going to last 9 years. If he had had a numerology reading, he might have known that. And that's something that you can be helped with in a numerology consultation. But he didn't know that. So Is that a reason why his marriage ended? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we do know that with marriage, when there's a vow that says, through better or for worse, this was his worst. This was a worse kind of a pinnacle and challenge time for him. But he did a lot to bring. He did a lot of work with and creative work with his actor being an actor. Um, he said yes to a lot of things. He met some of his heroes during this time. Yeah, so there was a lot of good things that happened, but he worked very, very hard. He worked very, very hard. And at that time, he just wasn't able to, he did feel a little bit restless. He did feel impatient because things weren't happening fast enough as far as he was concerned. Okay. So it might have been a difficult time for his family, but necessary for the building and the hard work of the number four. That's the truth. That's the truth of it. So then his third pinnacle and challenge, wow, this is like a total change in the restrictive pattern of the four. Again, now he has a five pinnacle, which means the five kind of takes over and says, okay, we've had enough of this hard work stuff. Let's get on to this challenge or this pinnacle of change, of adventure, of freedom. That's where he was going. This runs from about age 44 to 53. So this was his third pinnacle. We know he's 55 now, but he got married during this third pinnacle because it was in 2014, I believe. That I don't know exactly what he would have been, but now he's 55. So let's see, 10 years ago, he would have been 45. He would have been in the beginning of this third um, pinnacle. So he might have been a bit discombobulated by that change, but he adapted. He adapted pretty quickly, which is good because his career path shows that in some way, that five is actually conducive for the freedom necessary to be successful in his career. And that's something that we've seen about Noah. So the three challenge requires him to learn to speak from his heart. That's really important, I think, for anybody in the public eye to have a good relationship with the number three. And for him, this three is in the challenge space. So it means that it's present in his life. He just needs to learn to use it correctly. Um, the words to himself can be very critical. So that's important for him to realize that he needs to he needs to take this criticism of himself and turn it around and say, okay, I could have done that better. Here's what I'm going to do. And speak from your heart. That's amazing. That's amazing that in a way that he has this. So he's got this five pinnacle, which is about freedom and it's about adventure. So he's doing new things and he needs to remember to speak from his heart. He needs to remember that the words that he uses to describe himself are really important. This challenge encourages a joyful and patient and creative spirit. Yeah, I like it for him. So the fourth and the last pinnacle is the six, and again with the three challenge. Yikes. So okay, so the sixth pinnacle is loving. It's a loving with relationship overtones, and a focus on family and his marriage. I like that for him. He's not going to let life get in the way again. He's going to work when things come up that he needs to work on, he's going to do that. Or that the marriage needs to work on, or the family needs to work on. He's going to take care of that. He's going to do that. And that's very obvious with this six pinnacle. And that six takes him throughout the rest of his life. So I'm really happy for him that he has this now because that four, that second pinnacle and challenge was really, really difficult for him. But it did set a groundwork for where he's going in his career. It did set a groundwork for, I mean, everybody knows Noah Wyle. And the Pitt is it's off the charts being noticed. Yeah. Mm. So there can also be a focus on anything that feels like a family. So pets, his fans, community, people around the world can be a focus for Noah right now. That's blessings to us that he is going to take the time and energy to be a family man to everybody in a way. He's going to be an important person in people's lives. Yeah. Um, Now the three, as his challenge again, tells me that he's better and better at learning to speak from the heart. Does it still insinuate itself in his life that he can't? Yeah, that happens once in a while. But then he calms down and he thinks it through. And does he suffer a little bit from anxiety? Maybe, maybe. We know that's a shadow side of the three, but I feel like he's gotten better with it. And I feel like he's learning to speak more from his place in his heart, and he's learning not to allow his words to get the better of him in for against himself or even against his family or like when he is alone. Um, I don't know that he does that. I really don't think so. But I think that he needs to learn to speak better about himself. I think that's something that the three is teaching him throughout this time. So the good karma period hopefully counteracts any 1910 bad karma as well that's in his life path. So this challenge can be overcome, right? That number three can be overcome. I feel like, that this bad karma is part of what teaches him to be negative about himself. So we'll see what happens there. I'm sure we're going to see more of him. I'm sure we're going to see so much more of Noah Wyle. Let's keep rooting for him and to win at this life, just like we all want for ourselves. Blessings, and thank you so much for joining me today.